Hello and welcome. I'm Laura Briggs with the Vegan Fitness Runner podcast, where I'll be talking all things running, health and fitness, and what it means to be an active vegan.
With a contagious amount of enthusiasm for plant-based food, Vanessa Sturman brings the joy to eating. Vanessa helps people to eat their way to great performance and is passionate about healthy eating and the environment. With her own early challenges with diet and exercise, she now educates others through public speaking, one-to-one, and through workshops and events. Vanessa is also a regular on BBC Radio, Sky News, and many more channels. Hello, Vanessa.
Hello, Laura.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I've got my my coffee. I've just had a lovely, wonderful, filling breakfast, so I'm all ready for this chat.
I'm pleased to hear it. I'm not surprised you've had a wonderfully filling breakfast, seeing as kind of nutrition and plant-based eating is all what you do. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background and what you do for a living?
Yes, absolutely. So I help people with the real practicalities of delicious, healthy eating that is sustainable, built around their lives, not a flash in the pan, so built around your travel, eating out, everything. So something that's really fun and sustainable to get you great performance, a healthy weight without ever dieting again, and really eating the foods that you love. So I do that with people one-to-one, but I'm also an award-winning speaker, and you might have seen me sometimes featured on Sky News and BBC Radio talking about healthy eating and getting people enjoying their lives more through food.
Which is great. I mean, the word diet in itself is quite a loaded word, isn't it, Vanessa? Do you have what are your thoughts about the word diet and dieting? Is it something that you are dead against?
It's a really interesting one because I think the word diet has been very hijacked. I now say your way of eating because, diet can just mean what I eat, but it's been turned into something that is extremely restrictive, sometimes often rules that don't make sense, all with the aim of getting what is often just a short-term result, only focusing on weight loss. And it is very negative. And I do have a problem with dieting in the sense that it's often something that is really, really not sustainable, causes unhappiness. It can actually push people further down a path of really struggling with their weight, their relationship with food. A lot of diets, they do just massively help people drop calories and restrict calories, which does give at least a temporary weight loss. But often people put the weight back on and more. And then really, actually, this is the part that really makes me upset and angry, is a lot of those people start thinking there's a problem with them. Oh, I don't have any willpower. There's just something wrong with me. I just can't get the healthy eating stuff right. And I find that really, really awful, because in the end, we're so ill-educated when it comes to nutrition that people then do fall victim to, just do this, juice fast for a week and you'll drop weight. And it's like, well, yeah, you probably will, because you're not consuming many calories. and then they don't know what to do afterwards. So what I'm pro is actually things that are enjoyable. Does this fit in with my everyday life? If it's something you're going to be doing for a few weeks, a month, but you can't eat out, you can't eat any of the foods you love, it's not sustainable, then you're going to be completely stuck when you come to the end of that period.
I suppose as well, if you are somebody who does a lot of exercise, and for the sake of this podcast, if you're somebody who runs a lot, dieting in that sense of losing weight isn't a good idea, because you need the calories in order to maintain that level of exercise, don't you?
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I think this is where, again, there sort of comes a lot of confusion. You need the food as well to be healthy, to function, to live a long, healthy life. And I think that's another problem with how we look at food and exercise and diet, is there's this hyper focus on weight loss. And yes, of course, we want to maintain a healthy weight, and that's completely fine to want that. And, it's still important. But people are often purely eating or exercising for weight loss, which means they don't necessarily do things they enjoy. They sometimes do way more exercise than they want or need to, because they think, well, if I don't burn this many calories, I'm going to put on weight. And it stops life being enjoyable. But yes, you're completely right. You know, if we are doing more running, doing more exercise, we are going to be burning more. We might need to be eating a bit more to deal with that as well. But we need to be eating a really good quality of food as well, and quality of food that gives us the nutrients we need, that is actually enjoyable, that fills us up, that cuts cravings. And all of those parts often get forgotten.
Vanessa, you came into the diet, nutrition and fitness world through quite a personal journey, didn't you? You didn't always have the best relationship with your diet. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you came to this?
Yes, of course. So when I was about 15 years old, you know, I was a bit overweight in school, not hugely, but, you know, I thought, oh, actually, you know, it'd be nice to, I'll be honest, actually, it wasn't even much about weight I was thinking when I was 15. I just thought, I want to get a bit fitter and I want to start, you know, just looking after myself a bit better. And I remember being on this lovely path with my dad going for a walk, and surrounded by trees. And I remember saying to my dad, oh, would you just run to the end of the path with me? And I'd never done any running. I was like, run to the end of the path with me. And I started doing that and started doing, you know, some stop-start running, which, you know, looking back was a really good idea. You know, it wasn't obsessive. It was like, actually, of course. And anyone could do that. Just run to the end of the path and then, you know, do another little bit of running. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. But that then turned into running 7 miles a day and eating very, very little food and losing more weight than I ever intended to lose, and becoming very, very restrictive with myself, you know, cutting a lot of carbs, not having any of the cakes or sweet things or anything like that I really, really loved. And I really ended up dropping a lot of weight, which was very, very, very unhealthy. But the most unhealthy thing was my mental health. You know, it was not in any way at all glamorous. It was, you know, I was constantly thinking about food. I was kind of hungry a lot. I then turned to binge eating. Again, really, really not a very nice place to be in at all. And I often presented as normal to people around me because I could binge a lot, but then kind of not eat very much for a little bit as well. So I had, you know, it was, yeah, really, really awful. Quite easy to hide because, like I said, I looked very normal, but I was in some of the most pain I've been in my whole life, like mental pain, basically, and didn't really know how to get out of it because I was so uneducated when it came to nutrition. And the fact was, when it would come to being, you know, to binging, I was so hungry. You know, let's go for some of the basics here. I was so hungry, and you know, my body was just like, oh my God, get this in. And I was also restricting myself so much that if I hadn't had anything I really enjoyed, like all week, then of course I would just go for it when it came to all the cakes and the chocolate and everything like that. And I had this moment when I was 17. So I was kind of in this horrible place for like a couple of years. And I was also getting really tired of running so much. And actually that was starting to stop a lot because I'll just be honest, I didn't have the energy for it. I was just like, oh God, actually I can't really run this 7 miles a day anymore. And then I really sort of had this moment of seeing what I was doing and was like, oh my God, you've got to stop this, Vanessa. Like you're really unhappy, like you're hiding from everyone what you're doing as well. And are you really going to carry this on for the rest of your life? Are you really going to live like this? And I realized that if I carried on doing what I was doing, I wouldn't actually be able to live. It just wouldn't work. So after having this like epiphany, after eating like God knows how many boxes of cereal at someone else's house while I was babysitting, I decided, hopefully they didn't notice. They probably did. I decided for the next day, okay, I'm gonna, my first action was actually I'm just gonna allow myself to have a sweet thing every day that I like. You know, I'm not saying that's something everyone should do. I'm not, you know, it was just a first step to say I'm going to stop restricting myself. But I asked myself a set of questions, which was really important, and I hadn't asked myself the set of questions before. And they were very practical, which is why I'm into the practicality side. And it was, all right, how can I get more full and not want to binge? How can I cut cravings? How can I eat really nice food and get full and not worry about putting on weight or, or be a healthy weight? How can I do that? I also asked the question, which was extremely important, which was, how can I eat cake and be happy and healthy and, not worry about my weight? Cake was got to be featured in this. Very, very, very important. I love cake. That's my thing. And I went on that journey to discover that and started really going into building things in. And this is something that never, ever changed for me, in the sense that it's, what can I add in that's going to really help me, my physical health, my mental health, and that I actually really, really enjoy. So going on that journey and saying, right, how can I build this into my life? How can I still eat out? How can I eat? I love food, absolutely love food from all around the world. I love cooking. It's always been a passion of mine. So I started for myself building this into my everyday life, where I could still be quite relaxed about, well, look, I do want to have a nice piece of cake with that coffee. I do want to eat some fried food sometimes, but my biggest focus is going to be actually going to eat these wonderful foods that are wonderfully healthy. And I learned very much the power of plants at that time. Now, I did not go fully plant-based for another 10 years after that. But what I learned was very much a plant-forward way of eating. I learned how, actually, if you fill your plate with all these wonderful, vegetables, fruits, you're going to get more full, but you're also going to be really healthy. You're going to be really energetic. And that's what I wanted to be. I understood how incredible carbs were. And, this whole carb cutting, that actually, for energy, carbohydrates are really, really important. That your sweet potato, your grains, etc., oats. I was having my oats and berries and nuts for breakfast. I learned all of this, making big green smoothies to go with them. So I understood that plant-forward way of eating. And then when I went plant-based, 10 years later, and vegan, lots of things changed, but a lot of things didn't, in the sense that I already understood how to have, wonderfully balanced plates of food. I understood how to cut cravings. I didn't have a problem with kind of weight management. It wasn't the top of my list. It was actually, I'm just going to be healthy and enjoy my life. And I can do that very easily with what I'm doing. So going plant-based was incredible. And of course, I saw lots of benefits, but I was still a big meat eater. I'm not going to lie. I was a big meat eater, big egg eater, lots of fish. That's what I thought was where the protein kind of came from. So I did have to make some big switches in that. I did have to make big switches with turning any cakes I made completely plant-based. But that plant-forward, that structured way of, flexible structure, I call it, saying, okay, I know what to pile the plate with to get nice and full. That shifted obviously to completely plant-based foods, and it became even easier to cut cravings, get full. And I realized I could make it just as delicious, and that building it into your life stayed the same as well. That I still want to eat out. I'm still going to go on holiday, but stay really healthy and enjoy whatever food I want.
Vanessa, you're obviously a very self-motivated person. I mean, from the very outset, at the age of 15, deciding that you're going to run that far every day or you're going to restrict your eating in itself is a motivation, isn't it? But then you found the motivation to turn that around and make it into a positive. I'm guessing that a lot of people who come to you maybe struggle with that motivation and maybe struggling to know kind of how to eat, what to eat, and what they should impose upon themselves. Are there any things that you say to people when they first come to you, if they've got some kind of issue with their eating, as you had? Are there a few tips that you can give people to kind of start to get out of that hole?
Yeah, I think this sort of motivation question is really, really important, actually. I am motivated. Maybe I'm not as motivated as people think, in the sense that, I very quickly stopped doing that much exercise. I just couldn't cope with it, and I found it really boring. And so I did have that period of being really motivated, and in many ways I am a motivated person. And then yes, in my 20s I went to the gym a lot, sometimes 4 times a week, doing loads of classes. Now, I really enjoyed it at that time. I do not go to the gym now. I do bits of exercise at home and just outside. I am not, in inverted commas, as motivated with that exercise, but I do what's still effective and helps. And I think one of the things that, not just for people who come to me, but for everyone, is that it doesn't have to be massive changes. That you can actually look at someone and sort of go, oh my goodness, they must be in the gym 2 hours a day and they must be cooking all day to get the food that's healthy. And actually, it's often these very small changes that you do consistently. It sounds a bit boring because everyone wants to understand this like big bang change or whatever. It's actually really small, consistent changes that really help. So I always start small with people, whether it's someone I'm working with, people I'm talking to. People don't realize the power of, look, just go and build in that 10-minute walk, or just go and do that run to the end of the road. You know, it really doesn't have to be loads, but if you're consistent, I mean, that's where the power is. So say, for example, with food, and I think this is, again, people think, especially if they've got loads of problems with their relationship with food, or they're really struggling with their weight or any kind of other issue that might be caused by nutrition, they think it has to be this massive big bang, or that they have to suddenly become a biochemist or an expert in food. When actually, if we just start building in these small things. So I look at people's food for the day, and that is not to criticize it. It's to go, oh, where is there an opportunity we could have added something here or reduced something here that would have made you more full? Like really, really, really basic. So say someone is having oats for breakfast, or let's go with that. So they're having granola for breakfast and maybe a bit of fruit and some yogurt or something. And then they say, actually, I'm often really hungry later and I'm really struggling with my weight. What we might just do is some basic changes and say, well, look, if we had, instead of the granola, or left the granola for a sprinkling on top or something, but say we did oats and chia seeds, and we really make sure those are swollen up nicely with some plant milk. Maybe we could add some cinnamon. What you've got is you've got more fiber going in there. You've got a bigger water content going in there, which is going to be helpful. The oats are obviously really, really good as a complex carb and for our energy. The chia seeds also got some protein in and more fiber in there, really filling. So even if someone was having that same breakfast, just, you know, the oats, maybe a bit of fruit and yogurt, and we add even just chia seeds, people are like, oh my goodness, that one change, I added a couple of tablespoons of chia seeds, made sure they were fully swollen up as well, get that benefit of the high water content. They're like, I'm so much more full. I'm not craving things as much. My day is now easier. We did not have to become a food specialist with that person for them to get that result. And then maybe they go and build in a little bit of exercise, or they do a 5-minute video from YouTube on exercise. And suddenly their life is a bit better. Things are easier and they've built in more nutrients. Maybe they add even more fruit to that breakfast and some nuts, and they do it, and this is the thing, consistently. They do it consistently and start getting the results. So that's where I think there's maybe a misconception on the sort of motivation side of things, that we can actually do these really small things and get big results.
And what's really interesting is that you want people to feel full. A lot of people might eat and think, oh, no, I mustn't eat so much. I'm going to try and restrict it. And one thing I have found with a lot of people who, certainly when they first transition to a plant-based diet, is they worry that they're eating too much, because you have to eat more plants to kind of replace those calories that you would have otherwise got in, you know, meat protein or in dairy, don't you? So what I'm hearing from you is that actually it's fine to eat until you feel satisfied. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think of these words, and I've had discussions with people about the words full and satisfied. Use whatever word kind of works for you, because for some people they go, oh, I associate full with eating too much. I'm like, okay, cool, don't use that word. Do satisfied for you. So we'll go with satisfied. If full works for you, that's also completely fine. But yes, of course, you know, what we really want to do is make sure that we do feel satisfied. We're not thinking about food all the time, craving food. And getting hungry is very important as well. It's great to then go, oh, I'm ready for my next meal. I'm not, nice and hungry. And there's no, you don't have to stick to at all. And I think this is another thing that's a problem. There's 3 meals a day or 6 meals a day, whatever it is, do what works for you. And sometimes, you can have a really filling breakfast and, end up eating lunch a bit later because you think, oh, actually, I was quite full from that. That may not be the case. You may need an earlier lunch. So that's very important in kind of doing what works for you. But in terms of filling out the plate, so maybe this is a good place to talk about calorie density, actually. So basically calorie density is the number of calories that you get in a particular volume of food. So, for 500 calories, for example, you can eat loads of strawberries. You can eat loads and loads and loads of strawberries. But when it comes to something on the more extreme end, something like oil, you can only have a very small amount of oil for 500 calories. This doesn't mean we should avoid certain foods. It just means we need an awareness of this. So when you're bulking out your plate with lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, so say you have those, lovely oats and chia seeds, and you're, piling extra fruit on top, that fruit is going to keep you more full. It's got lots of fiber in it and it's high water content. So that's going to keep you more full, but it's not a ton of calories that are going on top of that. So it becomes easier to get full without eating huge amounts of calories. And we know that in order to maintain a healthy weight, if you're eating more calories than you're burning, then you're going to be putting on weight. It just becomes a lot easier with plant-based whole foods when we're bulking out with those wonderful foods, and things like beans as well. So beans are lower calorie density than things like, go down the end of the scale, the oils, the cheeses, etc. Lower calorie density, but high fiber as well. So that fiber keeps you really, really full. So that's another add. This is the thing. Think about adding onto your plate. I think so often we think that's why people dread this idea of, oh God, I've got to get healthy because I'm going to have to start removing everything from what I'm eating. Start with adding, add. So if you're having avocado on toast, lovely. I love avocado on toast. Add some beans onto the top. They can be as simple as add some beans onto the top and cut up some, or it could be anything you could roast, roast a load of tomatoes, cut some tomatoes in half, maybe put a bit of balsamic vinegar and garlic on them, and, give them a roast or put them in the air fryer and add those to the plate as well. And what you've done is you've added not only just more nutrients, but you've added more of these foods that are high nutrient density, high water content, more fiber, more protein from the beans. You're going to be more full and more satisfied, but you're also going to potentially have helped your gut health more as well. So there's lots of advantages to just this kind of adding on, partly also because it cuts calories and stops you craving all sorts of things later.
And presumably by adding these extra little bits that are plant-based, you're getting nutrients in your diet that you possibly wouldn't have thought about previously.
Yeah, exactly. It does cover so many things. And I think often, again, we get like a hyper focus on one thing. So there's an obsession with, say, protein or, gut health is so important. So I don't want to say we don't want to obsess about gut health, but, gut health is important. Of course it is, but we don't have to just hyper focus on one thing. If we're just adding more of these foods onto our plate and we make sure we have got a load of fruit or veg, complex carbs, protein, some good fats as well, things like our avocado, our nuts, our seeds, and we're just kind of adding and we keep up variety. So another question I often get from clients when I talk about sort of adding fruit to the breakfast, and sometimes they're like, yeah, but which fruit? And they, sometimes there's a worry about, well, which one should I have? Take away that worry, just have variety. Yeah, and that helps you not only get those different nutrients into your body, but it really, really helps your gut health as well. There's you've probably heard it talked about this number of try and get 30 different plants a week into your nutrition. And, that's fantastic for your gut health, fantastic for that variety of nutrients, but it doesn't have to be difficult. It can be, well, if I have this, sprinkle some seeds onto my salad and it's a mix of pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds and sesame seeds, just a small amount of those, you don't have to think too hard about that, but that's 3 different plants you've just added onto that. So, we don't have to hyper focus on too many different things if we're just kind of getting this variety and adding it in.
Talking of hyperfocus, Vanessa, can we touch on carbohydrates and
yes.
the two kind of extreme views on carbohydrates? One is from an athlete's perspective, say they're about to run a marathon, let's take it to the extreme, and you hear this term carb loading, I must carb load. And then take it to the other extreme for somebody who maybe is on a, maybe thinking more along the dieting line that we talked about earlier, and they are going to be restricting their carbohydrates because they think that carbohydrates are going to make them put on weight. What is the role of carbohydrates and how should we think of them?
Yeah, so I think there's quite a lot to sort of unpack here. I think maybe go to like why carbs sometimes get this really bad reputation. And I think there's a few reasons. I think, first of all, sometimes people dump carbs or anything with carbs into the same category. So you do have, first of all, the refined carbohydrates, and you have complex carbohydrates. So refined, table sugar, caster sugar on the mild extreme end, and then complex carbohydrates are root vegetables, our potatoes, our yams, our grains, our oats. When I say grains, that's can be rice, rye, barley, even things like our quinoa and buckwheat, etc. So you've got those complex carbohydrates which are really, really good for you. And then, like I said, you've got the more refined ones. And some people say, I cut out carbs and everything changed. Now, there's also a question there of, okay, did you cut out lots of deep fried French fries and lots of, cakes and biscuits and things like that, which do have carbohydrates in? And, sometimes there's a real blanket on that. So, of course, if you're cutting out some of the really refined carbs and the things that come with them. So say you take something like a biscuit from the supermarket, and I'm not saying you shouldn't eat that. Sometimes I do eat those and they're lovely, but what you're also getting in there is not just refined carbohydrates. You're also getting a lot of fat. You're getting a huge amount of, calorie density, a lot of calories in a small amount of space. You're getting a low water content. Yeah, but let's face it, those are not helpful when it comes to weight management. But sometimes people are literally dumping carbohydrates into the same categories. We want to be having complex carbohydrates. Now, of course, if you stop eating any food group, like, right, I'm not going to eat any carbs at all, chances are you are going to lose weight because you are just cutting out calories from your nutrition. That might be short-lived, and you might then, find it really difficult to keep up, which is why a lot of people say, oh, I tried cutting out carbs for a bit, but now I'm in this position, I'm coming to you for help. Or I tried keto. It worked for a bit. This is a really key phrase. It worked for a bit. That means it didn't work. I hope just so you know, because it's like, well, you're now trying to find more help if you're not going back to that. So, and there's a reason for that as well. So there's definitely that issue with, categorizing carbs all in the same category. We really, really need complex carbohydrates for energy. They also are really, really brilliant for helping with our blood glucose, for example. They're slower releasing carbohydrates that are really, really important. They are going to make us feel more full. Now, I think people also, again, that they're not thinking about balance on the plate. So I'm not suggesting it's a balanced meal to literally just eat potatoes on a plate. You can if you want, but it's really not a balanced meal. So we'll talk about what other balance we want on the plate and how else we're going to be adding things that make sure you get full. And I think, again, with the lack of nutrition education, is what sometimes happens, maybe when people go plant-based as well, is they say, I just ate a big plate of pasta, that's all I ate, because I would have previously had some tuna on it. But now I'm not having that, so I'm just having a plate of pasta. Regardless, there was a lack of education before they were plant-based, so there's a lack of education now of what goes on the plate. So that, I think, that can sometimes be a problem, because people think, well, I'll just have this big plate of pasta and nothing else. So we'll talk about, again, this will come into some of that balance side of things. So carbohydrates have this brilliant role. The complex carbohydrates have fiber in, and that fiber is really, really important for helping our good gut bacteria thrive as well. So it's really important for gut health, and we know gut health is important for many things, from digesting our food, keeping our gut healthy, our hormones, our immunity, all those things that gut health is really important for. But it's also what we're putting these carbs with. And let's go back to breakfast, for example. Seeing as we were on that example. Oats is your complex carbohydrates, and you've got some of that in the bowl. Now, I wouldn't suggest that for breakfast you're just eating literally just one big bowl of oats and nothing else. Now, even though oats are extremely healthy, let's look at the opportunities that we have to add other things that will really fill us up. So let's get a load of fruit on there. Like I said, now that can be any kind of variety. This morning there were some white peaches that I managed to buy yesterday. So I had one of those. I had a little bit of grapefruit, because the grapefruits were about as big as my head. So I was not going to have a whole one. The rest has gone in the fridge. And I've had some berries that I got out of the freezer. So I've had fruit on that. I've added some chia seeds and some linseed or flaxseed, depending on where you are. I've added those, which are brilliant. You know, the chia seeds are going to fill me up more. They've got some protein in. The flax seeds are really, really good, healthy fat, great for omega-3s. So I've added things in that are going to help myself and my body. They're also both full of fiber, which is excellent for the gut as well. I also added, I made these sort of like a kind of baked oats as well, so it tastes a little bit cakey. I basically made these baked oats. Also had some linseed in and some dates in, and I'd baked those the other night, so it tastes like I've got a little piece of cake for breakfast. And I've added some nuts and seeds to that. So I've added all these different things that are going to help me stay more full. And carbohydrates is one part of that. You know, it's not the whole of it. And so that's an important part of understanding, well, what place on my plate does this take, and what else have I put on my plate? And I think that is often not thought about.
I love how you see a plate of food as an opportunity for a woman after my own heart. I'm like, right, what else can I put on this plate that I'm going to enjoy eating? And I think that's a lot of it, isn't it? I think we have to start enjoying what we're eating and seeing food as an enjoyment process and something that's going to bring us benefits, whether that be for our running or just, for our day-to-day living. And stop persecuting these one foods, like we just talked about carbohydrates. And we know that a lot of plant-based people are often asked, where do you get your protein from? And it's all these, these kind of misconceptions. Do you think the key to good diet is education?
Yes, I think it is. And I think there's different elements of education. And this is why I love the community that we have in the nutrition and plant-based world and the plant-based health professionals and everything, because people have such different knowledge. And, what you do need to understand is some of the general research. What are the key things that I need? What does the research say about the foods that we could be eating, or what we really need to kind of reduce and things like that? That's really, really important. And then there's, okay, how does this actually work for me? There's different kinds of education. So I get a lot of people coming to me who do follow some amazing podcasts, have read incredible books, but they don't know how to translate that onto the plate. And that was the bit I really saw as missing, actually, sometimes. There are other people, obviously, who do what I do, but I saw that as really sometimes missing from people's, from what they had access to. There's this wonderful research. What does it mean for me in my busy life? Or sometimes they go, well, that sounds all good and well, but me, I don't know, it might be I've got kids, I'm busy, I travel. These are all these big myths, or people saying, oh, well, I'll sort out some of my eating after I travel. I think actually you could just start adding in some fruit and veg. That's not specific to being in the home. So I think that in terms of education is massively missing, and just how it works within someone's busy life, how food prep works, what else, like with this, what else can I pile onto my plate? What else will I really, really love? How can I cook my favorite foods in a way that are much, much healthier? So in fact, I saw a client the other night, and even though we were talking about what you can kind of put on your plate, I was saying, the best way to go about it is start with, like, what do I really love? And, what we sort of hit on was, and I actually made one last night, a big Thai red curry. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. And there's this like lovely Thai paste that you can get in the supermarket. So this is another thing to also remember on the education side of things, and that there can be some confusion, because people say, oh, anything processed is bad. It's like, well, a tin of tomatoes is processed, actually. And actually that is a really, really easy way for people to get a delicious, healthy pasta sauce into their lives using a product that could sit in their cupboard for a year. There's nothing wrong with tin tomatoes, but yes, it's processed. Many foods are processed. Tofu is processed. And then obviously you have ultra processed foods, but we know they are not all created equal either. So we've got confusion on that. And some people thinking, well, if I've got anything from a packet, it's not healthy. You can find, pre-made pastes, and some of them are just packed full of loads of herbs. And this particular one I use and again, it can sit in my cupboard for like 6 months before I use it. I made a massive Thai curry with lots of different vegetables. I used sort of half coconut milk, and then I topped up with extra plant milk. Still tastes really, really coconutty. I made a load of basmati rice, and I've put a load of the curry and the rice in the freezer for another time. But what I'm going to be adding to that, so you've got all this wonderful vegetables. So I've really bulked out with the veg, and I added some extra greens into that and wilted those in. I'm going to add a really good protein source as well. And I think that sometimes gets missing. Even though we have sometimes too much talk about protein in the media and everything becomes about protein, we do also need to think, have I, I've got a good source of complex carbs, I've got all my veg, but we need to make sure we've got a really nice protein source. Even though there is protein in the rice, the vegetables, we need something with a higher protein content, and something like tofu or tempeh will be really, really fantastic there.
Sounds yum. I'm getting really hungry again. It's really about longevity, isn't it, as well, Vanessa? It's about a way of eating that you can commit to throughout your life. It's like you say, it's not about faddy eating, because that doesn't work. Which is really interesting. If you said earlier, someone said, it worked for a bit, but now it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
To fit it into your busy lives, which is what you're so good at, which is kind of taking busy people with jobs and families and trying to fit in a run here, there and everywhere, and giving them solutions to being able to eat healthily in their life, with their lifestyle. For somebody, say, let's just pick somebody at random who has a kind of 9-to-5 job. They like to run of an evening if they can, maybe go to the gym as well. Perhaps they have children. Can you give some quick tips on how kind of they can maybe prep food, what kind of things they could eat during the day, when they're really busy?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the prepping food, the sort of bigger food prep. So that would be some of the stuff that, I did last night, and I am not going to be doing that every night. The cooking a massive pot of food. And that's the other thing. Don't be shy to, double, triple, even, depending if you've got a family, even quadruple the amounts in that recipe, because you're going to have the family eating that food that night, and you want to get some into the freezer. So, don't be shy to also, maybe invest in a much bigger pot. I know that sounds really sort of basic, but if you're going to use that massive pot a lot and you can bulk cook more things and freeze them, do that. That's a really important one. The other thing is, what are some of the little things that I can prep that might just go into the oven even while I'm watching TV or something, or doing anything else, or even doing a workout, whatever it is? What are those little things? Now, some of those things could be little snacks that you can even grab while you're cooking. So one of the complaints I sometimes get is, by the time I come to cook, I'm so hungry that all I do is grab the biscuits or something like that. It's like, okay, could you roast a load of chickpeas and edamame beans, or either or, basically? So edamame beans are your soya beans. Now, they're pretty cheap. You can get them in the frozen section of the supermarket. Really good source of protein. What you can do is basically roast beans. So you roast your edamame beans and your chickpeas, and you roast them so they're little crunchy snacks, and you can put whatever flavor you want on them. You can put a little bit of salt and pepper. You can put a little bit of smoked paprika, whatever, curry powder, whatever it is, or do them completely plain. I do sometimes add them into my breakfast for like an extra little crunch, because that
sounds great.
They're lovely. And that range of textures is very important. Very important to chew. But also, people like, the way people love a crisp or a chip if you're in the US, and they love that crunchiness as well. And that gives you some of that feeling, but you're a lot more full because you've got more protein, more fiber, and it's not a deep fried product. So having that kind of stuff around. So say you need to grab something quickly. Say you've got up a bit late and you need to jump straight on calls, and you think, I am really, really hungry, but what do I grab? Grab a banana and grab a little handful of those. That might be enough. You can eat that really quickly before you jump on the call. I'm not advocating wolfing food down and eating really quickly, but life is life sometimes. And that's all someone's got time for. Or you can eat that on the way to, say you're getting a train, you eat that on the way. So there's these very, very small things we can do, or you can take some of those roasted chickpeas. Actually, you can mix them with nuts. So that's quite a nice big jar you can do of the roasted chickpeas, roasted edamame beans, and chuck in, some walnuts and cashews as well. So you've got, some other good fats going in there as well. So you can go and you've got a snack. It's you're getting in even more different elements to that. Plus, just buying lots of fruit. So people, I think, underestimate that sort of thing as well. You know, if there's nothing else you've done that day that you feel has really helped your nutrition, just eating a couple of pieces of fruit will still really, really help you. And you can stock up on fruit. So fruit like oranges, grapefruit, some of those citrus fruits, apples, they take a long time to go off. Frozen fruit takes, you get in the freezer. It lasts for a really long time. So also thinking about what can I have around me that's going to really help me? So you don't have to shop all the time, but sometimes do a really big shop of some of those foods that will take a long time to go off. The tins of tomatoes that you can do as a pasta sauce. Even blending us. This is one of my lovely quick ones that I adore doing. A sort of cheat sauce. So if you just use a blender, and this does not involve chopping anything up, in a blender, put a tin of tomatoes, a packet of silken tofu as well. So silken tofu is also ambient. So you get that it's not in a fridge and it will last a long time. You can take it camping as well, or take it even on holiday in the suitcase if you're worried about getting things on the other end. But you put that in a blender with your tin of tomatoes, some garlic. You could put half an onion in there as well, maybe a bit of nutritional yeast, maybe a bit of pepper. Blend it up, heat that up on the stove, maybe then wilt some spinach into it so you've got, a bit of extra veg in there. Then add your pasta. You've got a really quick sauce that will probably last you for, depending on how many of you there are, a couple of meals. You could put half of it in the freezer as well. And all you've done is blend that up. You haven't even chopped anything up. So it's things like that can be super, super quick and helpful, but still give you a lot of what you need.
I'm literally scribbling down notes here. I would never have thought to add silken tofu to a tin of tomatoes, but it makes absolute sense and sounds super quick as well. So a lot of this is really convenient, isn't it? It's so quick. And you say, they're really small changes that can have a huge impact.
Yes.
Vanessa, you've just made the thought of eating and making food sound really joyful, which is so refreshing to hear. And it's honestly, I'm just really hungry now.
Oh,
that's what you do, isn't it? You kind of you look at how people can get the most out of their food and get the best nutrition and therefore be the healthiest version of themselves. How can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so a few different ways. You can find me on Instagram. If you just type in Vanessa Sturman, I will come up under the account Energize and Thrive Plant-Based. And I have a wonderful group actually on Facebook so I named it this a little while ago. It's called How to Go Plant-Based, but it's basically just a group that is all about eating more healthily, getting in more plants, getting in more balance, enjoying food, enjoying your life. And what I've actually done in there is not only are there a load of videos of different health tips, especially for things like traveling and, quick things you can do, but there's also a big bank of recipes in there. The things that you can try. I mean, the latest one in there is actually tofu cottage cheese, which is a wonderful one that you can put on your bread. Is a great opportunity as well. What can I add to this? A little bit of avocado and dunk on this wonderful tofu cottage cheese, a great protein source, and add extra veg to the plate. So you've got ideas like that are very, very quick. So you can use that group as an entire resource, and people going on there who've never come to even work with me on a one-to-one have had great results just even from using the resources in there.
Never have I been so excited about a slice of toast, honestly. Incredible. Vanessa, you're absolutely wonderful to speak to. I can see why you're an award-winning speaker. I really appreciate you and all your tips you've given us today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful chatting to you too. And I'm very excited for the food that you're going to go and eat now.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to leave a review for the Vegan Fitness Runner podcast. Please subscribe if you don't want to miss an episode, and remember you can find out more about all my guests and further information on all the topics covered over on the website veganfitnessrunner.com. Thanks again, and bye for now.